can stroke it to Bogdanovich, thinking about a three. There it is. Yes!
See it again. No double team help, and Embiid takes it right to the rack.
Embiid, step back, jumper, you bet. There he is again in the Euro step there. Embiid getting Gobert in a fight. Nice feed to Embiid.
What's going on, everybody? It is Saturday, February 5th. It is a brisk 20 whatever degrees here in where I am in the greater Philadelphia area. I'm joined this time by a pal of mine, a known Jason Tatum enthusiast and fan, Thiago Scabbia. Thiago, how are you today?
I'm doing well, man. Jason Tatum is back in the All-Star game, so I'm excited about that, especially with guys getting passed up left to right. So good for him, man. It's good for Jason Tatum, and we're here to solve the Sixers' problems, like the zone defense.
Yeah, exactly right. If it had been my vote, I would have never put Jason Tatum in the All-Star game this year.
I would not. Drew Holiday is the first name that comes to mind. I don't know if you had anybody else in your.
Drew Holiday, LaMelo.
Okay.
There were a couple others I forget, but yeah,
I would even go on like Siakam, which I'm not even a Siakam fan, but you watch Toronto. I think he has a bigger impact on winning than Tatum does. I don't know about you, but
I wouldn't have gone Siakam. I probably would have gone LaMelo or something.
Makes sense. Yeah.
Anyway, more important things. Sixers are 1-2 this week thus far, and they beat the Grizzlies on Monday. They lost to the Wizards on Wednesday. They lost to the Mavericks yesterday. And I was at the Grizzlies game, of course, and when that game ended, I turned and I was like, do I have to thank somebody for letting me watch this game in person for free? What a terrific game that was. That was probably their best win of the year. It was an incredible performance, just both teams going back and forth. And the Sixers were equal to the task and then some. It did need an overtime session, but what stands out to you about Ja Morant?
He is one of the most unique talents I've seen the Sixers play in a very long time. He is a flawed basketball player in many ways. Obviously, the outside shooting is something that sticks out right away. He can still get very sloppy with his passes, but I probably haven't seen a guy this dominant at the rim at his size since perhaps like Allen Iverson. Right. So you think about Iverson being so small and so, undersized, but still being able to finish at the rate that he does at the rim is just extremely impressive. And we all know how great of a defender Matisse Thybulle is. We've seen them on a regular basis. Matisse Thybulle didn't even look like he belonged in the court against Ja Morant one-on-one. And I think that gives you the general idea of the type of player that he is. I think that Memphis is set up to be a powerhouse on the West. I think that they need to figure out some pieces around them, but they got two foundational guys, him and Jaren Jackson Jr., I believe are both going to be star players, superstar players in Morant's case. So, and I'm very excited to watch him moving forward. I think the Memphis is one of the top teams in the West, and I thought that the way that the Sixers handled that game was exceptional. And I thought that this was Maxi's calling card as a Sixer. I mean, that was the game where you left and you're like, wow, Maxi he's here to stay, right? And that's what I felt like coming out of that game. So I don't know what you thought about it. That's how I felt on that night.
Yeah. I've never seen anything like Ja Morant before. I was too young for the peak AI years. I saw Derrick Rose. I saw Westbrook. But nothing like Ja Morant. He is so shifty and he can turn on a dime and he can fight through contact and he's creative. And when he jumps off the floor, it's like there are jetpacks in his shoes. Like there are spirits that are greater than human strength and power that lift him to the rim. He like jumps out of the gym.
Yeah.
Just insane. I've never seen anything like him before. I think he scored his points basically all on free throws and layups from what I remember. But that was one of their best wins of the season. There was one concern though that did arise for me for that game. I don't know if you noticed this, but they were doing a lot of like pick and roll with either Ja and Bane or Bane and somebody else, whatever the case. But they knew the Sixers were switching. And so they were like, well, I want to get Maxey on Bane or Maxey on a bigger guard or a bigger wing and then let them go to work. And so you're going to have a switch scheme with Maxey on the floor. They're going to go at him basically all of the time in the playoffs. And they're just going to shoot over the top of him. No matter what he does defensively, he's not big enough, at least not yet, where he can really, keep up with the size of bigger wings. And I thought like he had some good defensive stands, got down and really dug in and stayed in the airspace. But at the end of the day, they're able to shoot over the top. And I think that's problematic. That's something that's going to be happening. Something's going to happen, over the course of the playoffs when they get to opponents that have more wings, have shooting guards.
Yeah, I mean, I saw a little bit of that. I mean, you point out in our chat afterwards, and I try to pay attention when we watch the game. Memphis is not a particularly great shooting team, especially with Ja Morant. So I thought that, we've talked about this in the past is why not just switch it up? So throw a little zone here. We saw what zone did to the Sixers last night. But the Sixers don't really seem to have a lot of change up in their scheme. I mean, maybe you see it differently. I see a lot of personnel changes. So, if Thibault's not working, I'll put in, Danny Green, or I'll switch up matchups. But from a schemes perspective, they seem to be pretty set up on how they defend pick and roll and how do they switch. So, you would like to see a little bit more scheme versatility. I know when the Sixers tried to play zone a couple of times, it looked very disjointed. I didn't think like it's something that's very cohesive that looks like they practice a lot of. So maybe they're a little bit hesitant to do that in that game. But yeah, I mean, they have to look at alternatives because the way that Maxey's trending, he's trending like a player who you want to have on the court late in the game offensively. But you need to have solutions for him defensively because, like you said, he's just a very small guy. And teams like Brooklyn, right, Kevin Durant, they're going to call for the switch every time, and it's going to be an ugly sight. So, yeah, I mean, they have to find alternatives there. I've never been fond of Doc's defensive versatility, but yeah, it was against Memphis, just another example, like you said.
Yeah, and I think it is like a lot of it is personnel, and like they don't really scheme against what offenses are doing. They kind of just say, like, this is what we have. Find a way to beat it. The team's like, okay.
I do think like they're short a couple guys. So
yeah,
we can talk about it later on. But you look down the line of the NBA pool. I mean, they have to add size on the perimeter and size that can contribute offensively, not just like a Charlie Brown Jr. who can just go in there, grab a couple of rebounds, and that's that. So there are alternatives for them to address at the deadline who I think are going to help with that. Guys who can play late in the fourth quarter, who are going to defend, who are going to have size, and are not going to be just devoured defensively like Maxey usually is.
Yeah, I mean, I think like getting Shake back is going to help, right? I don't even remember who's out anymore. That'll help. But like at the end of the day, he's not playing Paul Reed. He's not playing Jaden Springer. So I mean, those are like two theoretical guys that can defend and are agile, and he won't do it. So I mean, what's there to say?
He did it early in the year with Paul Reed, right? Remember those games against Milwaukee and Chicago? So Reed defended Giannis and DeRozan a few times.
Yeah,
it wasn't like complete zero.
Yeah, true. Yeah. I will say, like, I understand why they don't play him, but I think that that's in part in the fact that they should play him more. But moving on to the Wizards game, that was an annoying game to watch, just because you felt like they had a bunch of opportunities to win that game. It didn't have to be as close as it was, but they kept them around, obviously. And that was an especially annoying game because you look down the road, like they have Dallas on Friday, Chicago Sunday, and then Phoenix next week. And I think with the Wizards, I think a couple things really stood out to me. Number one, namely, like they went with George Niang late in the game, and I get you didn't have like Curry there, who isn't a better defender, by any means, but he's a better shooter. But they went with Niang late in the game. In crunch time, teams are going to isolate their best guy on Niang, right? And they're just going to bully him and blow by him. And the Sixers had to have either succinct, immaculate backside help rotations to cut off that dribble penetration, or they're going to get cooked.
Yeah.
And they don't have those backside rotations. They're not great at that. So that's going to be a problem too come playoff time, is if they're having to play Niang crunch time minutes because someone's out of the rotation or someone's, out of the game.
Yeah. Speaking of backside rotation, I don't know if you pay attention to Tobias Harris. He's like terrible at that. I mean, he's always a step late. He like hedges towards the corner when the guy's going up for a dunk. I'm like, Tobias, he's going to dunk the ball. Like, you got to protect the rim, my friend. Yeah, it's not very connected. I saw the same thing. I thought that, for having Niang out there defensively, if you're shorthanded, then you have to make it work offensively, right? So he's a good shooter in general. And I thought that they left points on the table by just putting him out in the corner, right? So if you go back and look at those last 5 minutes of that game in crunch time, they were trying to run a lot of maxi and beat pick and rolls, pick and pops with Niang out in the corner. And at that point, I think to myself, I'm like, if he's going to be out there defensively and you're going to get burned, then why not have him run pick and pop with Niang instead of Joe? Because he's a better shooter. Like Joe had an open three, he kind of bricked it. So I thought even offensively with Niang out there, they left a lot of points on the table, which, when you talk about the points that it beats defensively, it's a tough math to add up. But yeah, I thought that the Sixers didn't show up for that game. I thought that they did a terrible job stopping dribble penetration. You see guys who are quick, just can get in the lane very easily against this team. And like Kyle Kuzma, man, like he's a guy who has gone from like overrated to very underrated. And I see what he does on the ball, and I compare what the Sixers have with Tobias Harris. And I'm not saying like Kuzma is a better player than Harris, but man, like it's right there. And then the money is just not there. So.
Yeah, I mean, listen, I think the help side rotations as a whole are not great. But I just think that they have so many holes up and down their defense, like in terms of guys that can't move or guys that are too small. It's a big problem. And I thought last night, like that was a problem as well. Like they late in the game, they have Thibault. Well, they had Thibault on Luka like throughout the first half. It was like he was anchored to
Luka.
Yeah.
He was anchored to your guy Jalen Brunson.
There we go.
Very good boy. Turned out
so with that, like, yeah, late in the game, they had Danny Green guarding Harden, which made no sense to
me. You mean Luka? You're already thinking about Harden right now. You're already like in Harden land. Do you know something we don't know, Austin?
Oh my God, it's been a long day.
It sounds like you know something that we do not know.
We'll get to that later. They had Danny Green on Luka late in the game, and what that illustrates to me is that they know they can't play Thibault extended minutes in the fourth quarter because he's just not bringing enough on offense. And even if they do play him in those minutes, it has to be it has to be like they're up a lot or they have control of the game. But when they're trailing in a game, they need some momentum. I think Doc kind of said, like, I can't afford to have a guy that's a non-entity on offense on the floor right now. unless
So I agree with the general sentiment. Here's where I kind of disagree, right? Because you are tied to Tobias Harris late in the game, and for what he gives you offensively, late, it's a lot of isolation, like very average output in isolation, and he does not really shoot from distance the way that you like. Defensively, he's kind of a net zero at best right now. He's not really moving the needle defensively. So, do you keep Thiago on the court and perhaps look at Tobias as a guy to switch in and out? Because he's not giving you that offense that you want from a guy in isolation. So, you have Max, you have Joe, you maybe get another shooter like Isaiah Joe, for instance. I'm just using this as an example. Now you can have Thiago on the court defensively, and you can play those matchups late in the game. I think that I get why he wants to have Harris, one of the guys that he trusts. Harris makes a lot of money. He should be out there. But maybe they want to play around with that a little bit because I'm not seeing the stuff late in games from Harris. And as a result, guys like Thibault, who add a lot to your defense, have to get pulled out of the game. So, there's more to play around with there, I think.
Yeah.
You're like, you love Tobias, man.
No.
Like, don't
I agree. I agree. So like he stalls your offense because he's a ball stopper. I also feel like he's one of the best like automatic buckets from a certain distance. So like 15 feet, 16 feet out, 14 feet. He's like one of the only guys on the team that can get those buckets there. Like, think about it. Throughout a game, is there Joel may be the only person more reliable in that spot? Would you agree?
I think Curry can get that.
Nah, Curry's more like the 17 to 18 foot jump shot guy.
Yeah, but what's the difference? It's 14, 15, 17. Just get Curry as your secondary guy and get another shooter so you can play tees. I don't know, man. So.
Yeah, I mean, I agree. Listen, like you need to have better flowing offense than what they had last night because last night was a disgrace. And certainly, a zone is not the place that you want to have indecisive guys. I mean, if I have to see like one more Tobias pump fake and drive, I'm like, dude, stop it. Just stop it. What if the shot's there? Take it. If it's not there, take 2 steps in and then get the ball moving, but don't dribble 9 times.
So you're an X and O guy. I'm not as strong as X and O as you are, but when I saw them attack that zone for the most part, I saw them doing 5 wide, moving the ball around without a ball handler. And they're just moving the ball around the perimeter, and then it ends up on like Georges Niang's hand with like 2 seconds left. And he tries to like go off the dribble, and you know what happens after that. So I didn't see them try to like flood one side. I didn't see them try to set any screens. I didn't see them try to swing the ball and penetrate with a ball handler. I saw none of that. So I don't know if you saw things different than I did, but when Doc goes on the podium and says, we usually do well against the zone.
They don't. They're 20th in
they're always like that.
They're like 20th in zone offense. Like it's awful.
I'm like, that's just awful. Not true, man. We watched the games. Like, it's just not true.
Yeah. No, it's disgraceful when that happens, and they just had absolutely no answers, and it isn't even like, it isn't even like they have solutions that are just waiting around and that are injured. They have Shake Milton, who's not a great shooter. They like there's no, unless they go to the buyout market route or they trade for a shooter at the deadline. There's no savior coming through that door. Now, Harden has been pretty good against the zone this year. He's averaging like over 1.2 points per possession against the zone. The catch being he's only seen 13 possessions worth of zone this year, so it doesn't really hold weight in the way that you would like it to. But I mean, like, listen, they need, number one, in the zone, it should only be Joel at the free throw line. Like, stop with this high-low shit when there's no spacing. Joel should be at the top of the free throw line, catching that ball high and turning and pivoting. If there's an ISO to be had there, go for it. If there is, a pass that you made, He's made passes this season at a much higher clip. In a mid-range jump shot, take it. Like, there's no reason for them to be this like stagnant in a zone when you have a heliocentric center who can do a bunch of different things with the ball in his hand.
So you're not a fan of like the high-low with Tobias at the free throw line, trying to throw a lot.
I'm fine with it if it's not like Tobias is right below the free throw line and Joel is right above the block. Like, that 2 feet of space isn't helping anybody.
There's like 7 bodies in that little area, and Tobias trying to float a pass, being the terrible passer that he is. It's just like, wow, it's not going to work out. Yeah, man, it's a bad news because we all watch the East, and there are a few teams who play the zone very effectively. Miami, one of them. Toronto is also a team that's very effective with their zone. Teams that they might face in the postseason. And then you got Milwaukee, who like they don't really play a zone, but they play that like packed-in style defensively. They just kind of pack the paint. So I'm interested to see what they come up with as solutions. And I'm not sure Doc and his staff is churning up the film to try to understand what's going on with their zone offense. I feel like it's just like, yeah, just go out there and pass the ball around, and somebody was going to get open shot. Or that's what it felt like last night.
Yeah, I mean, ultimately, all they need is just guys who are not going to be tentative in shooting. And I feel like against the zone, like they get so stagnant with their movement because they're so unsure of what to do.
Yeah.
And so it just like poses major problems. And like it doesn't look good either when George Niang goes on a podcast and says, yeah, Doc doesn't work us that hard in practice. That isn't a good look when you have a weakness that you literally cannot beat on a game-to-game basis.
So I get the physical part of it, but the film stuff,
yeah.
And I don't know what happens behind closed door, but the film stuff needs to be happening, man. You can't just, take a whole week off of just not practicing at all, because this stuff shows up on film, man. It's not that hard to point it out.
Yeah, no, for sure. And the problem with their guards is this: like they don't have big guards unless they got Harden. They don't have big guards. They have Steph. Or no, they have Seth. Sorry, Tyrese. They have Shake. And they have Furkan. But if at least with Ben, you had, guys that, could make entry passes against the 2-3.
Yeah.
If a team feels like, okay, they're starting to make entry passes at a higher clip, we're going to go to a 3-2 and really take away that passing angle.
Yeah.
So that's a personnel thing. The size, the zone offense is obviously a big problem, as we've said. And like the switching on guards. And even if like you do make those changes, you get like a guy or two, it's not going to solve everything. And they also have problems with off-ball screening too. If you notice, Reggie Bullock was getting wide open corner threes last night because the Mavericks were setting a ton of flare screens and Curry could not get through them. Other guards could not get through them. You could even switch those screens. That way there's no space for Reggie to really move off the ball. But that also means you're going to have like Curry or Maxey posted up against a screener, which also is not a good matchup either. So they lack size in the perimeter. They lack agility and athleticism. They lack a go-to option against the zone offense. It doesn't matter how good Joel is. There's a finite ceiling when you have those weaknesses. And don't even get me started on the rebounding. Rebounding is a whole different issue. I mean, how many games have they already lost this year where they couldn't hold a team to one shot on the final possession? I mean, Seth had a beautiful defensive stand against Luka where he stayed on his feet, didn't get up in the air, didn't bite the fakes, and Luka threw up a Hail Mary at the rim, and it just barely grazed the rim.
Yeah, Ang was just ball watching.
Yeah, and this was when it was only like a 4-point game. And then someone snuck by Matisse to get the offensive rebound, and then Luka had a 3-point play to make it a 7-point game. So
the athleticism is an issue. I wrote about this. I think that they should go after Gary Harris out of Orlando because he pops very positively. Guys who defend off screens. He's one of the top metric players at that particular metric. Athletic, shoots well from distance. Last year of his contract in Orlando, I'm pretty sure they can work something out. Rebounding, I wrote about Kenrich Williams from OKC. Very good player, size, defensively. You can play him late. He does a lot of good things late in games. So they have alternatives for personnel. If they choose to go that route, it may cost a little more than what they're willing to pay, but depending on what they think about those players, they should go after them. But then still, even still, the coaching aspect of it has to come into play, and the rebounding part of it. I mean, you see it, Austin. I mean, the ball goes up in the air, and Niang and Matisse are just looking at it. At what point do you just box somebody out?
Never.
Just get on somebody's body, man. We all play basketball at a very young age, and I don't know what they're getting taught, because one of the things he told us is box out, and that does not happen with the majority of this roster. It didn't happen with Ben Simmons was out there either. They literally lost a playoff series against Toronto because they couldn't grab an offensive rebound late in that game. So, I mean, it's very frustrating, man. Just very frustrating. So, they can get players out there. They're going to help, but if they're not getting coached to do certain things, then it may not even matter at the end. So.
Yeah, for sure. So let's move over to the elephant in the room. James Harden, according to Shams, is now available on the market, and they are expected to entertain conversations with the Sixers about Harden, which is basically in line with what I've heard for a while. And a lot of smoke in the air, a lot of contradicting things. Most recently, I heard that Joel wants to keep the team intact, so they might wait until the summer for a trade. However, I will say this. Harden has a $70 million incentive to ask them to trade him to Philly now instead of waiting until the offseason. Reason is, if they trade him to Philly now, he can still sign the Supermax extension in the summer, which would be the 5-year deal worth $270 about. If they wait for the sign and trade option this summer, it's a 4-year deal worth about $200. So there is incentive for him to say, you know what, just get me out of here, please. Just do the trade. And then they say, all right, fine, we'll get you out of here. Additionally, I've heard that Brooklyn is getting quite tired of the situation. Right. So we'll see where that goes. But Harden would certainly solve a lot of their shot creation problems.
He would, and he's a top 15 player, top 10 player. There is no question. I think in my mind, he puts the Sixers probably as a favorite to win the East. Maybe if KD comes back healthy, who knows? Milwaukee's still up there, but I think there's no question he would make the Sixers a favorite. I'm not so sure about winning the title. I will say this. When you watch James Harden, it is not the same player that we're all accustomed to watching. So whether that's...
By the way, is fine. Like,
it's fine, right?
You don't need him to be an MVP candidate. You just need him to be a top 20 player, top 15 player, which he can be.
Yeah, and he still is this year, borderline top 15, I think, top 10. But there are concerns, man. I think that if anybody's expecting James Harden to come here and be that player that he was at Houston and for the Sixers to be contenders for the next 5 years, I don't see that. I don't see the same physical player. He does not have the same lift. It shows up with how he finishes at the rim. It shows up with how he's shooting overall as a player on the ball. So I think they can ride the Harden wave this year for sure, next year. But I would be very concerned about if they were not to win the title in the next 2 seasons, where that would leave the Sixers moving forward. Now, granted, if that's the move to make, it's kind of a no-brainer. But it feels to me as an outsider that Moore is chasing a little bit of his white whale. And I think he may have a little bit of narrow vision when it comes to how to make this team better. And the reason why I say that is
you're gonna get all the I guess it's probably a small boat, but the pro Moore pro Ben people. I guess there aren't many pro Ben people left. I guess they're either all anti Ben pro Morey, or they're pro Ben anti Morey. I don't know, but
Yeah, I mean, I'll say this, like I'm not sure where Sacramento stands with the Halliburton situation. If I was Sacramento, I would not trade him. But to me, if I was Morey, that is a move that I would prioritize. I think that we watch Halliburton very closely, and the way he's trained as a player, I think that he can slot in next to Joel and extend the Sixers window, not for just 1 to 2 years, for 5 or perhaps even more years. So that's a move that I would make. SGA, Oklahoma City. Again, I don't know if these guys are available or not, but these are the type of players that I would be looking to bring in with Joel. Because I just see that Harden situation being a very short-term thing and the potential to go south very fast. So, but again, if that's the move to be made, it's kind of a no-brainer. It's just don't expect the same player. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah, I mean, I think what we're talking about here is like, is he a top 5 player anymore? No. If he decided to like take care of his body for once, maybe he can get back into that top 10 conversation. But I think right now he's like a consensus top 15 player in the NBA, which if you have an MVP candidate in Joel and you have a top 15 player in the NBA who's also a ball dominant shot creator and who can get you 36, 15, and 13 triple doubles, you're in a pretty good spot. And all they need is guys who are willing shooters, which I don't know how getting Harden affects that, but they need, they need those shooters. But part of me wonders, could this be a Chris Paul situation where he was like, everyone was like, this is the worst contract in the NBA. And
there's like a rebound.
Yes, he gets to a different situation. There's a massive rebound, and he becomes like, and people were like trying to outsmart themselves and calling him an MVP candidate.
If that's the case, I think the Sixers are going to win multiple championships, because I think at that point the Sixers, with the way Joel Embiid plays, it's kind of a no-brainer.
But I'll tell you who should love the idea of a Harden trade.
Brooklyn.
Obviously. No, Embiid. Because think about how not only will he not have to carry a heavy load anymore on offense, they're going to run pick and rolls, and he's become a better screener. It's going to be like Harden throwing him these beautiful passes, them manipulating pick and rolls, him diving and getting easy buckets.
Yeah.
And on top of that, they're going to live at the free throw line. Embiid's going to be able to play like an entire halves without subbing out, because they're just going to get they're going to take turns getting fouls and fouls and fouls. They're going to have like a 32 free throw half.
For entertainment value may go down a little bit, but they're all.
I'll love covering it though. It'd be great.
I will say this: Ben Simmons, Kevin Durant, Kyrie Irving is about as perfect fit as you can probably ask.
What?
And Ben Simmons, Kevin Durant, Kyrie Irving in the division, assuming these guys play, that is a tough team to beat, man. So you're trading within the division. There is a little bit of risk, especially if they build around Ben and KD moving forward. So it's not just a slam dunk that the Sixers win that deal, in my opinion.
Yeah. Well, so I actually had this debate in the Discord chat last night. My thing was, what is a better, or what wins up 7-game playoff series? Embiid, Harden, and Maxey, or Durant, Simmons, Irving? Assuming Irving is back.
Yeah, I think the Brooklyn still has a better chance. Especially they figured out a way to work Ben in their offense as a screener roller. His defense is obviously, we all know what that looks like. So I agree. Better set up. But Maxey has a little extra level to his game, which could swing the Sixers' favor moving forward.
Yeah. Yeah. So my guess is that right now they're haggling over Maxey or Thibault versus picks in the whole Harden scenario. Would you give up Thibault or Maxey?
Thibault.
Yeah, it's really a
Are you kidding me? What are we doing? What are we doing? I saw the same question being asked on Twitter, and I saw the results, and about 25% of the people would give up Maxi, and I don't know what they're watching.
Yeah, no, they're not. Those are the people who are like, buddy, you got to stop watching basketball, or you got to start. You got to stop. You got to stop like trying to follow basketball because it's not working out for you. If you, I mean,
Or
look,
you got to start following like Matisse Thybulle's TikToks or whatever, man. I mean, the guy's a charismatic player, but
newsflash: the videos are edited.
I mean, the guy's a generational defender, no question. But you can see how perimeter defenders can get kind of schemed out of the game, and offensively, just not improved, man. I mean, just hasn't happened. So I like the player. I think that I would make him untouchable in certain situations for sure, but if it became between both of them, it's a no-brainer in my mind.
Yeah, I will say this: like the thing that about Thibault that is just insane to me, that never stops being insane. His ability to recover off of a broken play or like off of a gamble is unlike anything I've ever seen. Yeah. Like the other night, there was like a breakdown, and I forget who was shooting, but this happens all the time, and it's my bet. It's the best way you can tell. Best way you can tell people aren't paying attention to the scouting report is when players will think they have a chance of getting the shot off as Thibault is like 5 feet from them.
Yeah.
Because he can recover off the broken play, turn around and get back to you and swat the ball. Like not even like a slight fingertip. It's like a full hand on the ball. And it's out of bounds. Like his recovery time is obscene. I still think he profiles probably a little bit more like maybe a Covington type, although his play against Steph Curry back in like December was like unlike anything I've ever seen in my life. That was certainly not Covington. That was Ben Simmons shuts you down defense, which is I think is something that the Sixers have to consider. Like if you trade Thibault, you're really leaning all in on the offense of like Maxey, Harden, Embiid, and your defense is not going to be great beyond Embiid. It's going to also put more taxing, more taxation on Embiid's body because he has to do more on defense.
Of course.
Whereas if you do the Maxey deal, you are forfeiting upside in the future. But you're also retaining some of your defensive identity. So
I will say like Harden defends size better than a lot of players at his size do. So he's able to defend the post pretty well. You still see a lot of that in his game. So he's a very strong player. So I think the Sixers kind of win. Like you saw last night, like Danny Green, Luka posting him up. It was a murder scene.
That was hard down the stretch. That was like I was thinking, I wrote this in my column. I was like, what are you doing?
No, it was bad. Danny Green, he does a lot of good things defensively, more off the ball late in games, but you kind of see he's kind of shot. I don't know. Maybe you see it differently. I kind of physically, I think he's a step slow. Another step slow. He wasn't particularly fast last year either. But he can defend size, but I mean, dribble drive, they're going to have a nightmare to defend. So, but I think you can get those guys at the market. I don't think those guys are very hard to find.
I think a team full of like C+, B-, B defenders is probably better defensively by a large margin than a team that has 1, 2 extreme plus defenders, and the rest of it's just like C+ defenders.
I mean, we saw last year the Sixers had 3 elite defenders, and they got bounced by Atlanta. I mean, there were other things that play in that series, obviously, but you saw their defense
like a guy passing out of a dunk.
Yeah, but even if we go on defensive end, like they could not stop Trey in certain moments of that series. So you saw their defense was just kind of like, neutered by perimeter offense. So, I mean, granted, if you lose Thibault, you lose a lot because you're already missing on Ben, but I feel like they bridge the gap. And to me, if Harden, Embiid, Tyrese, that's a top 5 offense, no question.
Well, I'll say this: like they're going to be able to manipulate pick and rolls like no other. If you go under, Harden can shoot it. If you go over, Harden can beat you off the dribble, or he can fling to Maxey, and Maxey can attack closeout.
Yeah.
And then if someone steps up to shut out the drive, that's fine. You can dump it to Embiid for a dunk. So, yeah, I mean those are all things that I think play into this. I don't know that I'm ready to consider them the favorites in the East, but I think they would obviously jump into like consensus Eastern Conference finalist. I think is probably what I would say.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I think that. I mean, I've seen a little bit of Milwaukee recently. They don't look good at all, man. I don't know what's going on over there. And Brooklyn, if they get KD and Kyrie back, they're as good as anybody. But I don't know what Kyrie's situation is going to be at in the postseason. It doesn't sound like he's interested in getting vaccinated at all. So I don't think KD can do this thing by himself. So it's wide open, man. It's wide open. Like, it's a shame. It's a shame that Ben Simmons does not want to play for this team, because I really think that if he did and found the role, the Sixers would be favored this year. I really think that. I think they're a much better team than they were last year, but they're missing a massive piece on the roster right now. And if he just came back and played, does what he thinks that he knows what to do, the Sixers could be a finals contender, man, and it would flip the narrative around Ben. I think the crowd would welcome him if he played at a level that he knows how to play. But it doesn't seem like they're interested in that at all. So.
Yeah, I will say this: like, one thing I can say for sure, teams that win championships are often a top 5-ish defense, and sometimes the offense can lag behind that a little bit. But defense typically wins you championships. And if they give Maxey up, or if they give Thibault up, they're going to have I would say anything from like a middle tier defense to a below average defense, even if their offense is better. Yeah. So you're playing with fire a little bit there. We already saw in Houston the all offense, no defense thing kind of didn't work out.
Yeah.
But obviously when you have Embiid as your rim anchor, you're going to be an okay enough defense. It's a matter of, can they sort of defy the theme of how teams or how champions are formed?
Yeah. I mean, they can develop defenders in their system, and I really hope they, second round picks. I know a lot of these guys don't work out, but you see a lot of second round guys who come in as defensive first ball stoppers. We're seeing a couple of these guys this year. So Herb Jones and Ayo Dosunmu, 2 guys who are doing very well defensively. You can develop these guys in your system. You don't have to spend a high asset on these guys. So, I know that's not the path they want to take with the team moving forward, because they're focused more on winning now. But if they do choose to trade Matisse, I will let them focus more on developing these defensive first guys. There's a lot of these guys in the draft, man. Last year there are Kessler Edwards from Pepperdine, who went to Brooklyn, is another guy. He plays now for Brooklyn. You see how defensively oriented he is. So I hope they figure that out moving forward, because you can develop these guys pretty effectively. Yeah.
Thiago, where can they find you?
You can find me at the Painted Lines. Just finished an article about the Sixers' needs. Obviously, there are plenty of them.
Was it like a 28-page thesis for college, or was it like...
This is me watching and just smashing my head every time Embiid kicked out of a double team and Korkmaz launched it 10 feet over the rim.
I can't watch Korkmaz anymore. I can't do it.
No, man, it's bad.
But on the beat, the beat writers I'm close with, every time he misses a 3, I'll turn to them. They'll be like,
and for some reason, Doc thinks he's like the backup point guard of this team. So I don't know.
Which tells you how bad they need a fucking backup point guard.
Yeah.
More than anything, they need Shake back.
Yeah, I'm not as high on Shake as some people are. I wrote about, people don't want to hear this name, Corey Joseph. He's playing very well in Detroit.
I like Corey Joseph.
Yeah.
A lot.
I wrote about DeLon Wright, who's kind of like falling out of favor in Atlanta. Bigger guy, can defend.
Yeah.
guys you can target that way. So there are alternatives, man. Whatever they want to address, there are alternatives out there. It's just a matter of what they cost.
Yeah. He's Thiago Scabbia. You can find him on Twitter at T Scabbia. Well, no, actually now it's Thiago PHL.
Yeah, I changed. I got to change it on here.
Yeah. It's more official now. Find me on Twitter at NBA Krill. I cover the Sixers day to day, Painted Lines, cover the NBA for USA Today. I also host this podcast. Thiago writes for the Painted Lines, often one of our best writers. You can follow him, obviously. As always, we appreciate you guys tuning in. Have a good weekend. Enjoy the week. Buckle in. It's going to be a wild trade deadline. Everybody, take care.
For sure.